Welcome back to another episode of Vaishnav Venture Works. In today's episode, we have the opportunity to dwell into the soulful world of Carnatic music and dance with a great artist whose melodic journey has charmed audiences all over the world. Joining us today is Ms. Shobana, who is the founder of Sambhav Raga Pvt. Welcome to our show, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you so much for welcoming me.
Yes, ma'am. So to start off, can you tell us about yourself, ma'am? What inspired you to establish Sambhav Raga, combining both singing and dancing in your curriculum?
I have been a Carnatic vocalist and a Bharatanatyam dancer for many years. I've been teaching for the past 25 years. And Sambhav Raga is my brainchild since I was in school. I have always wanted to establish an organization that teaches music and dance because I have loved doing it. I have had great gurus who have inspired me. So I felt like this journey should be taken forward by me to other people by sharing what little knowledge I have. So I think the dream started when I was in 9th grade, when I had decided that I'm going to do music and dance. Of course, as a pattern goes, in our families, we definitely do, basic degree and education and all of that. And I loved my college years, M.O.P Vaishnav, where I studied. I did my bachelor's in commerce from 1996 to 1999. And I loved how my school as well as my college honed my skills by encouraging me to participate in contests, to be able to explore all that I want to do in music and dance. So I think my dream project of Sambhav Raga has come together for the past 25 years only because of the seed that was sown during my school and college days. So, of course, big thank you to my parents and my teachers and my institutions for making that seed grow into, a plant that stayed on and found fruit in these many years.
That's amazing, ma'am. So, during your early stages, when you initially started Sambhav Raga, what are the challenges that you faced and how did you overcome them?
So initial stages when I started teaching, you just start as simple classes, at home, and then you don't know where you're going because my passion was to be able to share my knowledge and teach. But I was still finding a path for, how big this is going to grow, how many students I'm going to have. I did not have those kinds of dreams because honestly, when I started, I was 19 years old. So it was actually something that I wanted to do really. But I was not having a very important aim to go a certain distance. But as years went by, and I really enjoyed the process of teaching, I really enjoyed the process of, reaffirming my own skills. Because when you actually share knowledge with someone, you're kind of learning on the go, right? You're learning every day from your students as well as to how well you've understood the subject that you've taught. So with all of these things, of course, my learning with my gurus was also going on. So I would say the initial challenges would be basically not having an aim, which I think is not very good because obviously when one starts a business, you have a certain target in mind, you have a certain aim. My aim was all about enjoying the passion of teaching. But in terms of goal, I think the biggest challenge was in my head. I should have set better goals for myself to grow faster. And then life took on, so many other challenges domestically and family-wise came and went. But one thing I'm extremely happy about is every challenge that came through, my core passion and my core interest in doing what I set out to do as a schoolgirl never changed. So I think my vision was very clear. It's just that the way I was going about putting that vision in practice could have been better in my earlier days. So I would say the biggest challenge was my own brain.
So, as you mentioned, you started off in a very early age. So, what were the financial management? How did you manage them during your initial days?
So, my investment was quite low. So, I must say that ways, I think it was really helpful to be able to say that the place for teaching, right? So, it came about with, people's spaces. So, there was another teacher who wanted me to come there and teach. And then I moved to New York because I lived in Chennai, and then when I got married, I moved to New York. When I continued to teach over there, I was able to rent studios But all of them initially for the first 5 years were just to break even. So whatever was coming in as fee for my teaching was all going towards paying the rent for the studios, to be able to find ways to keep my passion going. At the same time, I was not too keen on profit, because it was also finding space in a new place. Because as I was settling down in New York and continuing my teaching, spreading word about Carnatic classical vocal music and Bharatanatyam was my primary goal, and enjoying the process. Of course, there were many people who've done that before that, but the presence for South Indian classical music and Bharatanatyam was much less back in 2004. I'm talking about, 18, 19 years, right? So at that time, it was much less than what it is right now in New York. So I was teaching in schools, I was teaching in renting different studios and teaching. So I feel like those were some of the lessons that I learned best, to never give up on myself and keep doing it, keep doing it even in a small way, to continue that journey. So it started to grow much more than over time than even what I imagined. So the number of students that joined, the number of people that I was able to impact with my classical music training expanded. So I think all of those were wonderful moments in the initial stages.
Okay, ma'am. So, what marketing strategies have you found the most effective in attracting, clients or students and growing your business?
That was a time, again, if you're talking about my initial stages, I think it was a time when, spreading word through social media was just in its infant, nascent stage. So I was on every platform there was. You may not even remember, but there was something called Orkut. Facebook had just started. So I was definitely putting word out. I was preparing, my own flyers. So that was another thing, because I was not very tech savvy back then, and I guess even now, because things always keep updating. I think the biggest marketing strategies that helped me was to be able to focus and set time for marketing strategies every day. So I used to plan to be able to come up with a strategy every day to reach out to larger audiences. So that could be in terms of sending my profile out to different educational institutions that could include Indian classical music in their world ethnomusicology department, or in their regular Western classical music curriculum, to be able to give master classes, to give workshops. So spreading word by emailing them, spreading word by creating flyers, and going to the nearest temple or some other dance studio or other places where people are teaching music and dance, and not necessarily Indian classical music or dance, right? So it could be any other form, but I was always keen on setting some time every day on how to go about reaching people. So I think it boils down to how you make the best use of time to be able to segregate your business into different parts. There's one part of me learning, there's one part of me that's teaching, there's one part of me thinking of the vision for the future. So all of these three activities were on a constant basis every day. So that was very helpful.
Okay, ma'am. So today you teach both offline and in online as well. So do you have a team to help you, or how does this whole thing goes like, ma'am?
I wish I had a team. I'm hoping to expand that ways, because now it's going to a stage, fortunately, to a point where I can't handle all by myself. But through my 5 years of teaching in India, and then 15 years of teaching in New York, and now for the last 5 years of teaching in Singapore, it has been that I have been doing everything. So, of course, there have been people to support in terms of my husband coming in whenever possible, to help me with some website updation, or, to create some of the tech-related stuff or marketing that I would need. But honestly, I feel I have spent a lot of time to be able to upgrade myself, especially during COVID, to be able to learn how to do iMovie editing, to be able to, understand how Audacity works, to be able to put, audio files together. There's a lot of tech stuff that I learned myself. And 24/7, it's a job for me, in addition to being a full-time mom, I would say, of 2 kids. My thought process is constantly on my business. So I think any entrepreneur will understand and accept that, yes, we do relax, we do find our ways to spend our time to kind of wind down. But it's kind of just put in the back burner, right? Never goes away from our head, because constantly we're thinking of how to up our own skills, how to up the game with regards to the business strategies, as well as how to keep updated. Because especially when I'm teaching Carnatic classical vocal music and Bharatanatyam, which has been beautifully handed down by our ancestors, over 2000 years. And how else can I package it to the kids of this age, right? Because you have to be able to find new ways to package the same thing that's been taught over the years. And there's not much change I do there in the content, only because it's so beautiful already. It's so authentic. It's so lovely and traditional. So I do not dilute any of the forms that have been taught to me by my gurus. But the way I package it, I always find new ways and think about how else I can do so. In addition to my own training for music and dance, I did a few certification courses in teaching itself, the teaching methodologies of how Western classical music is taught, of how kids of different ages are taught, and how education in general is being imparted to people who are interested in learning. So I did a few certification courses. So all of these, I think, up my sleeve helped me over the years.
That's great, ma'am. So, according to you, what is making Sambhav Raga stand out than other institutions that are out there?
My biggest USP is my customization. That's what I'd like to call it. Because when you come to Sambhav Raga, I feel the personalized teaching that you get, and it doesn't have to be, when I say personalized, that's an individual class. It can be even a group class. I give emphasis for differentiated learning. What I mean by that is each student could be at a different level of learning. Their grasping skills may be different, and they could be different kinds of learners. They could be visual learners, they could be auditory learners, they could be movement learners. So I make sure that I customize my class based on my target learning audience to be able to teach that way. So for example, if I'm teaching a Muthuswami Dikshitar Kriti for a visual learner, I'm probably doing like a chart with colors in it, where I'm able to involve different different parts of the song being split into something where they're able to see that the notes are going high and low. They're able to see how it is not Shuddha Rishabam but Chatushruti Rishabam, depending on the ragam. So each learner gets a different kind of learning imparted from me. Some of them are movement learners, so especially younger kids who cannot sit for that long, I make sure that, say, if I'm teaching the Ragam Mohanam, then I give them different points on a chart on the floor to be able to jump on, so they get where the notes are while they're singing it. So they see that there is a certain distance between the notes and the frequencies. And then some are auditory learners, so I make sure that I play a certain section of music during the class, so that they're also listening to the wonderful artists who perform. So I use different tools to be able to package the class to them so that they're able to learn very fast, and they also keep that music with them for a longer period of time. So that has really worked with my own ways of analyzing how best I can render a class. And this is my biggest USP, I feel. So whenever students come, they don't leave me and I don't want to leave them. So even if they are having time commitments and they move on to different teachers or even different other places, or they stop learning, I'm always in touch with them. So I think that personalization that I offer as a friend, as a guide, because I honestly feel that I'm also learning in this process. So it's never a teacher-student relationship. Of course, there is sternness, there is firmness in getting the job done. But I think I love what I do. And I see that love from my students. So that's my biggest USP.
That's nice. Can you share a memorable success story from your institute that highlights the impact of your teaching approach?
The biggest success story would be an honors recital given by a student who had not even seen for 2 years. So I met her for the first time after her honors recital happened. And she used to have lessons with me just on Skype for 2 years. And it was about 2 classes every week. And she had to give a performance where she gets credit. It was at the University of Massachusetts, and I was living in New York. And she had to actually train and give a full recital. So this is with Kalpanaswaram, Naraval, Ragam Alapana. So it is not just the songs, right? And these were specific songs that I had trained from my gurus. It is not something where I send a YouTube link and say, you just learn from this. So this is all very specific lessons. We put together a whole margam for the performance. The whole concert repertoire was planned. And then every song was taught, and how to, impart the small tenets of Manudharmam was taught. How you actually train to understand to put the talam and the taniyavartanam for the mridangam is happening. All of these nitty-gritty details are all taught. And then when she gave her honors recital, that was the first time that I went to Massachusetts and actually sat through that. And this is just one of the many success stories. So thank you so much for asking me, because right now, even as I speak, I have a student who I have not met. I mean, there are many students like that, but one of them, for example, is 5 years old, who lives in California, who I have not met. And the kid started with me about 1.5 years ago. So I think all of these are wonderful moments to cherish.
That's amazing. So as a successful entrepreneur, how do you balance your work and life demands?
I think that is a question for my husband and kids. How they see me balance it. But I'd like to say that I think balance is a very, I don't know if it should be balanced. What I mean by that is, it's totally okay if your job is something that takes away a lot of your time, if you want it that way, right? So a balance is a word I feel is only when there is a problem with one side, right? Like suppose I'm spending too much time and people around me have a problem with it, then I have to talk about balance. Or if I'm doing too much of something and then I feel that my body is getting worked up, my mind is getting worked up too much, or I'm feeling sick or something like that, because of that constant effort, then I have to talk about balance. I consciously plan my day in such a way that I do spend 90% of my time, especially now that my kids are older and are more independent. I have a little more domestic help right now in Singapore than I did in New York. So I'm at an age and stage in my life right now where I'm able to spend 90% of my time for my business and only 10%, honestly, I would say, for the other things that come into my life. So even if it's family, sometimes I'm teaching my daughter, sometimes I'm, talking about music or dance with my kids. Sometimes we're just listening to a song together. It could be that, right? So I don't know how to exactly split between work-life balance, because for me, I love my work, so it doesn't even feel like it's work. So it's part of life. So I think once you have that passion and you enjoy what you do, balance becomes definitely easy.
Yeah. So last but not the least, what advice do you have for aspiring entrepreneurs entering your industry?
I think one biggest thing that I would say is never ever give up on yourself. And when I say never give up, right, I don't want to make it very generic, because when you say never give up, I don't mean on goals, because sometimes your goals can change. Sometimes the process that you choose to achieve that goal can change, and all that is okay, because your final vision is something, and then your short-term goals that you set up, may change, because you might do trial and error and then figure out something else. So giving up even on goals is okay, even if you completely change your profession and go to something else in your mid-40s, for example, and you find that your swadharma or your biggest fit is in something else, all that is okay. But never ever give up on yourself, because the confidence that you have that this too shall pass and you can move on and you are doing great, there's nobody else that needs to judge you. You want to be the best of yourself. That's all you need to strive for. Everybody else around you can inspire you. So there are so many role models I have. There are so many inspirations I get every day from my students, from my family, from the lovely artists that are there and have been around me. But I still know for myself what my strengths are and what my weaknesses are that I can improve on, and I never give up on myself. I think that's the biggest advice I would share if you would like to ask me that.
Okay, ma'am. And with that, we come to the end of this episode. Thank you so much, ma'am, for spending your valuable time to share your journey and for inspiring our listeners. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure, and I hope to be in touch. M.O.P is always a favorite place to be, and we'll be in touch. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am.